Everybody, we are back and we are here with Dr. Ashley Rozzi. She's a naturopathic doctor and one of the practitioners at the World of Wellness. So if you want to see Ashley, she is available for appointments. Today, we are going to be talking about therapeutic diets and nutrition. This is one of our very favorite topics to talk about together is food. We love to talk about food. And actually, food should be fun. It should be nourishing. It should not be something that we don't want to do or like. And I think that's a big issue. But Ashley, I'm so glad you're here. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. And of course, I love talking about food. So what a great way to start the morning.
Hey, tell us a little bit about you so our audience gets to know you a little bit better.
Yes, so I specialize in nutrition, anywhere from weight loss, if somebody is suffering with anxiety, depression. So I run the gamut of just helping people to get healthy through food. And I've been doing this for a really long time. Even before I was a practitioner, I was working with people just one-on-one just with food because I had such a passion for it and, worked in my own life doing nutrition and seeing the healing paths that I've taken personally.
Yeah, absolutely. And, people don't put enough emphasis on nutrition. It's very important. I always say to people, if you don't think it's important, just stop eating for a month and see how you feel. You usually feel pretty bad. So I, at one time, Ash, did a lecture called, Diets and Detriments Through the Years. And the very first one I talked about was the fat-free one. And I feel that came out of the 1960s, 70s when we had the Twiggy effect. She was a model that kind of hit the scene and she was a vegan. But, it wasn't just vegan. She was like vegan and fat-free and she was very, very thin. And I know today, with what we know about fat health, just your adipose tissue and all the functions that it does, that they considered it its own organ because it's part of your immune system, it's part of your digestion, it's part of your brain, it's part of your hormones. Like fat is good. And fat-free really hit the scene for a long time and created a lot of issues. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Fat-free is one of the worst things that had happened in the whole nutrition industry because fat is the building block for our hormones. Our brain is 80% cholesterol. So when you start taking away the fat, you start breaking down the body. And usually when you take fat out of food, what do they add? They add sugar. So, you see, what did we see? Diabetes rise. I think diabetes is now surpassing heart disease as one of the number one killers. So it's, they've added so much sugar to our food. People became more addicted to food, the wrong kinds of food, and people demonized fat. They thought fat is bad. I had a client years ago and I had her eating eggs. And at one point she would like snack on hard-boiled eggs. She was eating 6 a day. And she went to her medical doctor and he said, she went for her blood work and he's like, oh, your cholesterol is going to be so high. And I hate to see the numbers. Well, she called me and her cholesterol had come down. And I'm like, I know, I told you. And the doctor couldn't believe it. But, eggs are good for us. I mean, the yolk is great. It's high in choline, it's good for brain health.
So B12.
Yes, exactly.
Well, touch on that a little bit more because that came out of the don't eat eggs because they have cholesterol in them, cholesterol fad. And I mean, we can get into that whole thing too of cholesterol's a good guy. He's a good guy.
He is a good guy, and if your LDLs are high, there's some type of systemic inflammation. Let's look at what's going on. Yeah, cholesterol is good. I mean, it's good. Our brain is cholesterol. And when they, started taking, what they do, they told people eggs were bad and they wanted people to cook in margarine.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to laugh. I mean, I knew they had the best of intentions, but that's where I sit back and I'm like, okay, these are really smart people. These are really smart people that are handing down these like recommendations. And honestly, I mean, if I always say I'm just a girl in Tyrone who knows all this stuff, why don't those people know it? I think they do know it. I think they're pushed and swayed a certain way to say certain things. I also think that we are too quick in recommendations from the top down that we don't take enough time to like really study it, put it into play, see what the results are. We're even seeing that in our current world, right? It was like, boom, 6 feet, boom, a mask, boom, a vaccine, boom, 2 masks, boom, a booster, boom, boom. It's like everyone just slowed down. We don't even know what's working.
Right.
What actually we saw work was vitamin D. There was a study done on that, and we saw that, you know, they recommended blood serum levels between 60 and 100. We knew that worked. There was a study. So we have to like slow down in the magic pill syndrome, which is what this is. Everybody wants the quick fix. So I think that what people have to learn is that it's not fast. Health takes time. Yes. It takes time to lose it, and it takes time to get it back. That's the biggest thing. You didn't just get sick today. This has been a long process of poor lifestyle, bad choices, bad thoughts, and down the cascade of sickness you went. And so to pull you up and out of that takes time. It was a decision of nutrition. So to fix it, we have to change that decision of nutrition. It was a decision of activity. So to change that, we have to change that decision of activity. Sleep patterns. We can go through the whole thing. But what I want people to understand today is that you can use food strategically and for a period of time to change internal factors. And then you have to be willing to change that nutrition, and you have to be willing to change your diet in order to change your health. Because people get stuck on a diet. They're like, I do keto. I do keto.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well.
Yeah. And they're like, if it worked once, how come it's not still working? And the thing about, like, I'm so glad you brought up keto. Keto was meant for epilepsy, right? And it was for several months, they did a ketogenic diet, and then they came off of it and they reintroduced foods again. It wasn't meant to be a whole lifestyle. And that's what people understand. Yeah, maybe a specific diet, a therapeutic diet will get you the results you want, but that's not a maintenance program, right? Unless you have celiac, that's a different story. But, you know, most of these diets are meant to be temporary. And if you've healed the gut, you should be able to introduce these foods again without having sensitivities and, you know, and having all the immune responses.
That's a big point. Like ketogenic, I love it. If I see hormone issues, if I see brain issues, you know, I'm going to say, hey, let's try either keto or we just increase good fats. Sometimes it doesn't have to be like keto. Sometimes it's just like you're not getting enough good fats and you're deficient in those. So we can either up your fat in your diet or we can take a supplement. That's what I love about the world today, is that we have options for people that makes compliancy higher. You know, the second thing is, you know, I tell them, I'm like, we're going to do this for a period of time, and then we're going to retest and see what everything looks like, right? That's the other thing. People just get on keto, they're forever. And then all of a sudden it's like taking vitamin C every day at 5,000 milligrams a day. You're going to drive other things down because your vitamin C is too high. You're going to stop functions and accelerate functions too much. And that's what happens with therapeutic diets when they're pushed far too long. I'm not saying they're bad, guys. If you're on it, don't get offended and be like, I've been on keto, it's working for me. Great. You might still need it. That's perfectly fine. But there may come a point where you don't. And what are you going to do then? Are you going to be willing to like lay it down and pick something else up that might be beneficial? And that's what we're talking about today.
Yeah. How not to get stuck in just a one type of diet. You know, once you balance the hormones, or once the body comes back to a state of balance, you should be able to enjoy other foods again. You know, like going, maybe if your health is pretty good, look at a Mediterranean style diet. I mean, that really, you know, that brings a lot of good fats in there, like rice. It brings some good, you know, good carbohydrates in there, you know, fish. There's so many great things. So when you get your body to a state of balance, it's great to, you know, introduce some really healthy foods that you've eliminated for so long.
Well, Ashley, get into a little bit about some therapeutic diets that you use in your practice. I know last night we were chit-chatting online and you said, oh, I have this person on this diet because of this. And I know that we can't cure, treat, or diagnose, but obviously our body will respond with inflammatory markers to certain foods. So give me an example of like, okay, somebody comes in with a gut issue, right? Be it like inflammatory issues in certain parts of the gut, what are some of the strategic ways you position foods to help overcome or help that digestive system become stronger?
So, for example, I have a client who, we knew he had some issues with bloating, stomach pain, and we couldn't quite put our finger on what it was. We did a really clean diet, a paleo style diet, and even on certain healthy
Mhm.
foods, he was having some digestion issues. So I said, let's do a low FODMAP. And basically that's low in prebiotics is what it means. And I said, we will run this for 8 weeks. And because I believe he had SIBO, so I want to see if, we can eliminate it with a low FODMAP, and we'll start introducing we'll do a reintroduction phase. We'll take that in 4 weeks, and we'll start reintroducing 1 to 2 foods each week. But if that doesn't clear up, I would put him on like an elemental style diet, which is they're shakes that are already pre-digested, so the body doesn't have to work at them. And
Mhm.
usually in about 2 weeks, it clears everything up, actually quicker than the antibiotics they use for SIBO. But usually in 2 weeks, if you put the right person on the right diet, they're about 80% better within those first 2 weeks.
That's amazing because people don't put that much emphasis on food. And
Yeah.
truly, with clients that I've worked with, and they come in and they said, well, I've gone to see this doctor and this doctor and this doctor. And I said, has anybody addressed what you're eating or done any food sensitivity testing for you? And they're like, well, no. It's like, oh, okay. So I'm like,
That's
well,
a
we're going to do
great.
that today because, we might have some issues. So that's a great example of what you were saying is that what is SIBO? It's small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. It's where, and from what I understand and what I normally talk about is that bacteria gets pushed from the colon into the small intestine where it's not supposed to be. And it can even be good bacteria. It's just not supposed to be there and it becomes problematic. So they do give antibiotic therapy because it will destroy all good and bad bacteria. So that's basically what it is. And for me, I always say it's a weak ileocecal valve. That's the valve that keeps things from backflowing from the colon to the small intestine. I address that. I address colon health. So there's many ways that you can approach that. And I'm not saying don't do antibiotics. If that's what somebody needs, they need them. But there are other ways that you can approach it. So it's not something that I see a ton of unless I see like high constipation, people that are overdoing high constipation and probiotics, that can become problematic. So you have to walk the journey. It's not a quick fix. That's what I keep going back to is like someone comes in with a condition like that. I can't treat the condition, but I can absolutely help you with colon health. I can absolutely help you with digestive health. So those are things that we have to stop. We have to take the disease out of our mouth and throw it away. It's all dis-ease of the body. If you're constipated, that's a dis-ease. I'm sorry, your body's not like, yeah, I'm constipated. Let's go. No, it's not. It's in a dis-ease of
Yeah.
state. Just because an insurance company gave it a name and can bill you for it, that's a whole different thing. But that's not where I operate. I watch the body as a whole. What's the lifestyle? What are the foods? What are the thoughts? What is the spiritual wellness? What is all of that going on in your life? And then we just go in each one of those categories and say, hey, let's change some physical things like nutrition and hydration and movement and sleep and all that stuff. And let's change some spiritual things and let's change some mental things. Because if you're stinking thinking all the time while you're eating your really healthy meal, as we learned yesterday from Aaron Carey, you just shut down your whole digestion.
Yeah.
So I know you're big on emotions and eating. Tell us a little bit how the stinking thinking affects your nutrition.
Well, if you're in a negative self-talk or just in negative emotions, you will go more towards bad foods. Like you'll go more towards those comfort foods because they do the simple sugars, they do help produce dopamine. They release dopamine. So it's no different than a drug like cocaine. I mean, they saw the effects of sugar and cocaine on the brain, and it's the exact same effects. It lights up the same parts of the brain. So when you're feeling bad, you go towards like the bad foods, the foods that aren't great for us. And then what happens? It becomes a vicious cycle. Then you feel worse. The blood sugar spikes, you start feeling worse. Then you feel bad because you ate those things, and it just becomes a cycle. And I always tell clients, I'm like, the first 10 days will probably be uncomfortable. You won't be hungry, but it will be uncomfortable because it's different than what you've been doing for years. And I said, but get through. After that 10-day point is usually when somebody turns the corner and they're like, wow, by the 11th day, I feel great. I said, just fight through it. You're not hungry. You're just uncomfortable. But isn't that where the growth happens? We have to be uncomfortable to grow. And that's usually what I always tell my clients. Give me there the 10 days. I'll be there. I'll help you every step of the way, but just don't give up in those first 10 days.
Yeah, they're hard. But the first 10 days of anything is hard. The first 10 days of working out, the first 10 days of a new job. I think sometimes we just feel like, well, this should be easy because the model that we're used to is a pill for an ill, suppress my symptoms, and I feel better. Yeah. But as Dr. Sherry Tenpenny has said 100 times, symptom-free in the presence of pharmaceuticals is not health. Yeah. It's not. And it just makes us forget we're sick. And then that actually is more dangerous. That's like breaking your leg and then forgetting that you broke your leg and trying to go for a run. You're probably going to injure it more. So our body is set up to give us physical discernment, to be like, this doesn't feel right, taste right. It makes my stomach upset. Every time I eat it, this happens. Hello. Like, that's usually where I'm like, you don't want to suppress that. You want to stop assaulting your body with whatever that is. So if you eat certain things and it gives you heartburn, maybe not eat those things, right? I've heard said pizza, or people say like, oh, every time I eat pizza, I get heartburn.
Don't eat
pizza. No. I just take my little purple pill and I'm fine, because the guy that's advertising it on TV, he is the epitome of health. Overweight dude, right? No, he's not. So we have to stop being brainwashed that somehow it's okay to keep living in this debauchery and repressing the symptoms because of it and expecting health. No, expect sickness if that's the way we're going to do it. Expect to be sick. Because you do that, then you won't be disappointed when it happens.
Exactly. Because you're so right about that. Your body, as soon as I was talking to either a client or somebody I was talking to, and they said something, and I was like, you realize though, that's a sign of something else going on. Like, you can't pretend that didn't happen. And it was something that never happened to them before, but it happened all of a sudden. I said, our body will send us small signals right before something becomes major, maybe a couple years, maybe 5 years before something big happens. But that's your body saying, I need to take notice what's happening, because that happening is not normal. That's telling me there's something else going on, and we need to figure it out before it goes too far. And, one thing, even dealing with a family member who's sick, and, for years I had talked with her saying, you got to start making better choices, because it's really, first of all, it's really inconvenient to be sick, and it's really time consuming to be sick. And your freedoms go out the window. Like, when you become chronically ill or chronically sick, where you need hospitalization or you need surgery, your freedom, your freedom is pretty much gone at that point, because you're not well. If you have to have surgery, you're at the mercy of what is going on in the hospitals with the doctors. So there's so much that if you can be preventative and, make better choices, and it all starts with diet. You have to adopt a healthy diet for long-term longevity.
Mm-hmm. So someone had a question of, what is low FOD? Can you explain that diet?
Yeah, so low FOD means low in prebiotics. So it's low. It's also low in simple sugars. So it's very restricted. It is not an easy diet to do. That's never my first recommendation. But, my one client who's on it currently he's like, this is the first time in years I have felt good. So he's like, I'll stay on it. I'm afraid to introduce food. I'm like, no, no, no. We can't stay on it too long. We can't go past 8 weeks because you become malnourished. But it's just low in prebiotics. So there's no onions, no garlic. And I know that right there, I mean, we cook with onions and garlic and everything. So you really have a new way of learning to eat. But there's a low FODMAP app you could put on your phone, which makes really easy when you're grocery shopping, or it's just color coded. If red is high, you want to avoid the high FODMAP foods, and green would be the low FODMAP. So having the app does make it a lot easier.
Yeah, that does. It does have a plan, and it does make it easier to have that, but it is difficult. But like we said, anything's hard for 10 days. But people can do it. And when they're starting to feel better, I think it makes it easier, because I would rather, struggle a little bit with what I'm supposed to eat or being hungry than feeling sick all the time.
Right.
And as long as I knew there was an end game to it, right, which is what people know when they work with you. Whereas with their sickness, there is no end. There is no end date where your body's like, hey, on, October 31st, I'm just going to stop being sick, but can you just hang on till then? That'd be great. No, that's not what happens. But we actually give that end date of like, listen, we're going to try this for 10 days, 15 days, 30 days. And then they have a goal set of like, okay, and as long as we start to see progress, we will stay on this path. If we don't, then we need to adjust, which is different than the model of prescriptions, where they're like, here's a pill and I'll see you next year. There's no like good, indication of like, hey, you should start feeling better. Hey, this, hey, that. It's like, you're just on that same thing for a year until you go back to your yearly checkup. And that's not how you work with clients that I know, that they come in and they have monthly checkups to make sure that they're feeling better and the things that you're saying are changing. So that's a big difference on how you work with people compared to the normal standard, which are yearly checkups.
Yeah. And sometimes if people are 2 weeks, I had a gentleman who, they can't find out what's wrong. They don't know, and we did an AIP, an anti-inflammatory protocol, for a couple weeks. I said, if in two weeks that it doesn't clear up, I mean, they've even biopsied, his mouth because there's some sores. They just don't know what's going on. So I was like, okay, would you be willing to do some raw carrot juice? And I'm talking about a quart to a quart and a half a day. And they were willing. They went out and bought a juicer, him and his wife, and they're doing the raw carrot juice. And carrot juice is amazing. The carrot juice molecule is analogous to the blood molecule. And there's just so much in carrot juice with healing of cancers, and, where they find that it's really great preventative, and also, has helped with different types of cancers. And so it just has so many enzymes, and it's so good for our body. So I was like, let's go. If you're willing to do it, this is my recommendation. And, when people are not well for so long, they're like, yes, I'll try it and I'll do it. And they commit. And you're right. As soon as they start seeing results, it makes it easier to comply to the program.
Right. Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about, we discussed keto a little bit on Mediterranean. We talked about the FOD diet. Is there any other specific therapeutic diets that you've used in your practice that you found have worked well, and for what demographic of people?
Yes. So paleo is a great one for people with a lot of inflammation. That's a really easy one to do. So paleo, it's a lot of vegetables, proteins, and good healthy fats. So that makes it very easy. It's easy to go out to eat on a paleo. You're just really eliminating the grains, dairy, legumes, things like that. And I get really great results with that one. Obviously the anti-inflammatory, there's the restoration diet for somebody who has a really weak digestion. This could be a gastric bypass client, or, somebody who just their gut is weak, they're malnourished, maybe they're frail, so what we do is we cook, think of baby food, right? You just cook it down so it's so soft and it's pureed, and that's a really a really healthy one to do for somebody to get their nutrients in, so it's easier to assimilate. And that's what I'll look at. Like when, a client comes in, I'm like, how well are they digesting? How well are they absorbing? Do we need to calm down the immune system? Is there a lot of inflammation? Is there leaky gut? Is there anxiety, depression, neurological conditions? So that's how I will look at a client, we'll talk, we will assess to figure out which diet I think would be the best to give them the quickest results. And, and you pair that with some really great supplements, and it just works so synergistically together that, the people are like, wow, I have results. I'm feeling good. My energy's improved. No more afternoon naps.
Yeah, and digestive health is so very important because it does determine assimilation, it determines immune system. So can you give us a little summation about digestive health and what you advise for your clients so that they have low inflammation in their digestive tract, the right enzymes, the right probiotics, for your clients?
Yeah. So when they come in, and if, they have a lot of bloating or a lot of discomfort, I'm asking, I go through, what are they eating currently? What does your diet look like? And what have you been eating, every day? Let's run through that. Okay. And right then and there, I can troubleshoot, and, and thank you, Darcy. And right then and there, I can troubleshoot and start to change their diet and start to make better improvements. How much water are they drinking? And that is one thing I see across the board. People are chronically dehydrated, and that makes a big difference in their digestion. So we look at that, and is their diet really high in dairy? We know dairy is inflammatory. So maybe depending where they're at, their stress level, some people can't do a whole change right off. So maybe it's just eliminating dairy. Let's take away dairy for 2 weeks, and then if they start feeling better, okay, let's maybe take away gluten for a while. Let's see what's going on here until they start to feel really good. And so everybody's a little bit different. Sometimes I put people in a 4-day rotation where, you add in a food, and then you don't add it in again for another 4 days, just to see if it's causing any inflammation or overstimulating the immune system.
Yeah, great thing. And the overstimulation of the immune system, when I know we use Zyto technology and we scan people, I'll see digestion flag high and inflammation, like the gastro, and people are like, well, what is that? And I'm like, well, your immune system could be responding to something that you're eating. And they're like, oh, so I think sometimes we separate our digestion and foods and inflammation from our immune system. And it is our immune system. This is your natural first response of your immune system: nasal passage, mouth, esophagus, stomach, and then your entire small intestine and large intestine. It is part of your immune system. When you inhale a bacteria or a virus, or you eat food that has parasitic activity on it or any type of bacteria on it, your body immediately starts to make enzymes. Your nasal passage starts to stimulate your lymphatic system for T and B cells. You swallow that food, the esophagus warms it to a certain point to activate certain things in your body as well. It hits your stomach. Your hydrochloric acid is then churning that mechanical digestion and sanitizing everything. Goes into your small intestine, enzymatic activity kicks in, probiotic activity kicks in, and then through the colon. And what your body needs, it'll reabsorb, and what it wants to get rid of, it excretes. That's the immune system. It's not just nutrient assimilation. It's identification. When you pass food through the small intestines, those little villi that are in there, that food molecule has to be so small that it can get sucked up by those little villi. And then they're taken to the liver, where the Kupffer cells actually identify good, bad, kill this, send out the immune system on this, put this over here and stimulate the thyroid growth. Like, that's how the digestive system works. It's not just like this tube. It is an intricate part of immunity. And if it is poor. If you are taking a PPI or acid reducer because you want to eat wings and drink beer, well, you've just cut down on your sanitation and identification of bacteria, viruses, parasites, and other things that are being entered into your body on a daily basis. You just weakened your immune system. If you're taking medications that interfere with digestive processes, you've weakened your immune system. So I don't think we put enough emphasis on healthy digestion, what that means from tip to tail, start to finish, in and out, all the way through. It has to be healthy. And we've too long suppressed our immune system by suppressing our digestive system. And we've too long overexcited our immune system to pay attention to the burger and the fries and the Diet Coke, because your body doesn't know what that is. And so it's fighting. And then all of a sudden this little virus slips through because your immune system is busy with those food allergies causing inflammation. Huge thing that we need to address. And that's why I love how you practice, because you start there. I know you start there.
I do. I look at digestion for everything. You're exactly right, Tracy. And so many times it's looked at as completely independent of anything else going on. And it's not. It's where everything begins, is in digestion. And I love what Candace wrote over here. She wrote, great info. I'm starting to feed my 6-month-old. Everyone keeps asking if I'm giving him cereal yet. I don't plan on it. Babies can't digest that. I give him soft boiled egg yolks, avocado, carrots, real food. I love that. And that is so amazing for his brain. I mean, and his body will develop so well. And I think that's really important that, for, the ones that have little ones, feeding their kids real food, healthy food. And I know, Tracy, you're big on that with your kids. You give them healthy, clean foods.
Mm-hmm. I try. Now they have opinions. Candace, stuff as much as you can in there now. Just do it, because later on they don't want that anymore. They want what their friends eat. So, but here's the thing: is if you provide the base. So same thing, Candace. When John was little, I used to take avocado. And I would, nice soft avocado, and I'd chop it up and just put it in chunks, and I would spread homemade hummus over it. And so he would just eat that. I mean, it was like messy, just everywhere. To this day, he will choose hummus over any snack, hands down, because the neurology was built. Your children's brain, your enteric nervous system, the way that your body communicates. And there was actually a study called Eating for A's, and they looked at 2 brackets. They looked at schools feeding normal lunches to kids, and then kids that were pulled from schools for poor behavior, emotional unrest, all this. And they fed these kids 2 different things. So they took these emotionally unstable kids and they fed them all whole food lunches every single day. And then they took these kids over here that were apparently healthy kids in school, and they fed them the normal school diet, whatever that is like worse than prison food diet. So, right. The kids that were in the special school for behavior issues, it kicked the other kids' butts in testing, performance, athletic ability, just from changing their diet. That was like how the other bracket that they did was they took kids that were low economic, that were normally fed like, foods that were low in nutrition. And so, because, the government does not give you assistance for healthy foods. They just give you assistance for junk. That's what they give you. Mm-hmm. So it's almost like they want you to be sick, but that's a whole other lecture. But anyway, they gave these children, they started to puree like broccoli and green peppers and carrots and all this stuff into things that they were already eating. And they would hide this nutrition in food without altering the taste, just enough to get it in there, but not enough to alter the taste. Like if the kid was eating like box mac and cheese, they would puree down like carrots and everything. They would like put it in the mac and cheese and mix it up. Long story short, within 3 weeks, children who had never eaten a physical like green pepper or a carrot ever started to ask for them. They wanted them. So what they hypothesized was it took about 3 weeks to build the neurosynapse of communication of the brain, that you can change your neurology for what you crave by eating it. And it was an amazing study. And so these kids were like asking for fruits and vegetables that they had never been presented with before, saying, here's an apple, eat this. They actually would just hide it in things. So this is what I'm talking about, that we train our brain.
We
We
do.
train our brain,
Mm.
and you can untrain your brain, and you can retrain your brain at any time. We think the brain doesn't regenerate. It is constantly regenerating every single day.
It
So
does.
it takes about 3 weeks for a new synapse. That's why they say it takes 3 weeks for a habit, because it's retraining your brain. And it's a physiological retraining. You get a new code for what you like or dislike. So if you're constantly saying, I hate this, I hate that, I don't eat that, I don't eat that. I always tell my kids, don't say you hate something. Don't say you don't like something if you didn't try it. You don't know, but you're telling your brain you do, and you're building synapses. I'm like, let's try it. It takes 10 times of presenting something in front of a kid before they'll try it one time. 10 times. Most parents are like, after 3 times, they're like, I'm out. I'm just not even going to try anymore. Don't stop, parents. You're
Right.
training their brain.
Persistence.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I feel like we should say this every day on multiple platforms because it's so important. And having kids eating cleaner, I mean, just everything improves, their mood, everything. And that is so important. And I saw somebody wrote here, any diet suggestions for a friend who's currently has COVID. He has low appetite and energy, diarrhea, and congestion. So right off the get-go, I would say, power cleanse, I would say that. I would say, the pro oranges, and even adding in the more liquid DMG for the energy. But the power cleanse is it's a great meal replacement. So they're getting a lot of vitamins and minerals in it. It also supports phase 1, 2, and 3 of liver detoxification. So I love that. And I would do smoothies with vegetables, maybe adding in one fruit, but putting a lot of spinach in there, avocado, because you can't really taste the spinach. You're not going to be able to taste the avocado, but avocado has some good fat. The spinach, you get some fiber. You can even blend up some beets in there, make it sweet, but it would give a lot of nutrients. And that's really what you want to do. You want to get a lot of nutrients in there.
Yeah. And this is a great time because most people lose taste and smell. So if you can't taste anything, you'll drink anything.
That's so true. So
Drink
that's in there.
Right. But I mean, some of the things that, the reason that they work, the power cleanse, harsh name, but works well, right? It's just basically a macro panel, protein, carbs, and fats, micronutrients, all your vitamins and minerals. And then, as Ashley said, that phase 1 through phase 3 detox, which helps the body eliminate and stimulate the immune system so it can overcome. The other thing I like to add to it is the lean greens. If people don't have spinach and things in there, you can just mix those two up. Now you're getting your superfoods. And ATP is low with this type of viral infection. Any envelope virus will steal ATP to replicate itself. So the DMG that she has suggested is incredible because it's a methyl donor and it'll help with ATP production and recovery. The diarrhea and congestion, I'm a big fan of getting colloidal silver and just spraying that up the nose. Also, I always apply the transdermal Cbd cream from Nutritional Frontiers to sinus areas where there's inflammation because it's a transdermal. So it has lipoderm technology. It gets in there. It reduces inflammation. That's always a good one. And then the diarrhea, probably what I would suggest is just some good probiotics, but also removing inflammatory foods. You don't want any more inflammation, bone broth, GI complete, liquids, just getting liquid nutrition there, all the colors, the pro reds, the pro greens, the pro purples, the pro oranges, 1 scoop every day of one and just cycle them, like do oranges on Monday and Tuesday, the reds, and Wednesdays, the purple, and so on and so forth. So that you're just like flooding with nutrition. The biggest thing that I've seen help overcome this is flooding with nutrition, not just Z and zinc. I had a parent text me the other night, 19-month-old baby, super sick, wouldn't eat, wouldn't do anything. So I said to her, she's like, she's just not acting right. She's looking at me and she can't focus. And, I'm like, well, what are you doing? And she was doing all the right things, right? She was keeping her hydrated. She was giving her supplements. And I'm like, did she eat? And she was like, well, no. And I was like, and I literally said these words. I was like, give her ice cream. And she's like, well, she doesn't normally eat ice cream. I'm like, I don't really care. Give her ice cream. I want to see if it's low sugar. At some point, guys, we have to get out of our heads of we must do it this way. The baby's sugar was low. And so she was hypoglycemic. So she ate ice cream. And guess what? The mom called me and was like, she was like a new kid. And I'm like, well, yeah, she was hungry. So sometimes we can't recover because we're not getting nutrition. That's where that power cleanse is so important, because it's liquid, it's easily digestible, it'll help with the inflammation in the colon. It has its own probiotics and enzymes in it. So Ashley's suggestion, power cleanse, put in the lean greens, DMG, like get liquids in there, pro colors every day. I know that Candace always does a scoop of all of them at one time every day. Like she's just like the greens and the reds, just this big container of pro colors, but it's why she's healthy. So guys, nutrition is key. It's going to help you overcome a lot of things. Good stuff.
Absolutely. Nutrition is so important. I mean, and that's the thing too, when we restrict ourselves for so long, we do become malnourished, and even a therapeutic diet done too long becomes more detrimental to the body than helping the body. So it's really important to, do something for a time being. And I always say too, as our bodies change, as we change, as our stress levels change, our nutritional needs need to change. What worked for us 10 years ago, or even 5 years ago, sometimes even a year ago, doesn't work sometimes the following year. It's just because our body requires different nutrients at that time.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us a little bit. I know you're big on functional weight loss, and this comes to therapeutic diets, because I really think that our therapeutic diets are not used for brain health, right? No one gets on keto like, I'm going to have a better brain. No, they want to lose weight. They go to keto. They don't get on paleo because they have systemic inflammation. They get on paleo because they want to lose weight. So let's talk about that real issue, right? Of weight and all of that. And just give me your take on, what is your weight loss approach? What is your health and wellness approach to it?
Well, weight loss is really a side effect, right? Like if somebody's carrying excess weight, that's because there's something else going on in the body. The weight is just it's a symptom of something going on. So right off the get-go, I want to see how well, here we go. How well is their gut working? Are they absorbing what they're eating? Are they assimilating? Are they eliminating properly? There's many times when somebody sits in my office and they're inflamed. It's not even a weight issue. It's an inflammation issue. So it's like, okay, let's get the inflammation down. And what I look at, so I right off the get-go, I look at healing the gut. Right. Our brain and our muscles run on glucose, but our guts run on glutamine. And one of the big supplements I love is the GI Complete. The GI Complete powder has 5,000 milligrams of glutamine, along with other herbs that heal and repair the intestines. Super important, the whole microbiome. So I look at it like that. Let's get the gut healing. Let me give you foods that your body can utilize, that they will take in and it will use as energy. Let me stimulate thermogenesis, because a lot of times people don't eat. They go all day and not eat. So their body's in this survival mode. That's like, I need to eat. And I want to hold on to this food because I don't know when I'm going to eat again. So I like to feed that metabolism all day long. And it's funny, clients always say, I can't get in all the food. I'm losing weight. I just can't get any more food in. I'm like, okay, if you can't, that's okay. As long as we have you eating. So I look at it like this, if you give the right, if you give a client the right food for their body, so I do customizable nutrition, the right food in the right portions for their body, they're going to speed the metabolism up. They are going to lose weight because their body will now go to a healthy weight and maintain that. And they're going to reduce inflammation, and in that, they're going to boost the immune system. A lot of times in the past, that people would go on conventional diets and they would, just reduce calories. So they deplete muscle and fat at the same ratio. And then when they go back to eating, they start gaining more weight because they lost their calorie burner, which is their muscle mass. So I always want to give a client enough protein to maintain lean muscle mass, because that's important.
Absolutely. That was the big thing with the calorie cutting. It was like, hey, let's just cut calories. But, when you do that and you take your caloric intake below your caloric need, that's called starvation. That's not weight loss. That's weight manipulation, and it's an archaic view of how to lose weight. And honestly, people that are still selling it today, I'm just shocked by, oh, cut your calories. And the same thing goes with burning calories. Guys, it would be like burning Fahrenheits or burning Celsiuses. Like, it's a thermogenic measure of heat.
Yeah.
Your body heats up in accordance to the metabolic processes. And your body heats up when you have a fever. You know, it heats up to kill a bacteria. Are you burning calories there? It's the same thermogenic increase. You know, so why not just get sick all the time for a weight loss program? We could just do that. That would save a lot of money and time. But that sounds weird, doesn't it? It's like, oh, that's crazy to say. It's not crazy to say. It's the same biological process. So with that said, it's not that exercise is irrelevant. Of course it is. It's detox. It stimulates lymphatic integrity. It stimulates the colon. It stimulates the liver, the kidneys, the lungs. All are methods of detoxification for our body, not calorie burning. So we got to take the words burning calories out of our mouth. We also have to take the words burning fat out of our mouths. I talked about that in a lecture called Functional Weight Loss. Fat is good. We want healthy fat. We want healthy adipocytes. And that's what Ashley's talking about, is positioning nutrition to make avenues of detox healthier, our gut healthier for assimilation and immune response, and our adipocytes healthier, so that we have the right inflammatory markers put out to the blood and the right sensor mechanisms to stimulate cellular repair. That's the biggest thing. I think if we can change the industry on the way we approach weight and weight management, it would be a game changer for so many chronic illnesses like cardiovascular, diabetes, obesity, just all of the things that we're seeing people suffer from today. And it's because the biggest industry in the world is still telling people to count calories.
Yeah.
And points and whatever we're supposed to count. Like, we're just mathematicians. Like, why do I have to math?
Right. And if you're eating the right things, your body will just burn fat. It'll operate the way it should, where you won't have excess fat. And that's the thing too. If cut out fat for a while out of your diet, and after a month, you'll see your coordination isn't as good. You can't think as clear. Like, fat is super important for brain function and for every function of the body.
Yeah, I mean, calorie counting is like the core math curriculum of the weight loss industry. So just doesn't make sense. And it's like you have to take a left and go over here and do that, rather than just being like, here's your path. Eat well, sleep well, think well, move well, eliminate well, and make sure that you're nutrient dense and toxin free, and your body will automatically come to a healthy weight. Hormones balance. It's all about that homeostasis that Joe was talking about this morning. We have to have it in all ways. You can't, there's no extremes in health. There just isn't. So Ashely, you're awesome. Thanks for being here. How do people make an appointment with you at the World of Wellness?
Yeah, thank you for having me. Yes, you can call World of Wellness, and I'm there on Mondays and Fridays. And I will actually be there tomorrow doing some free mini Zyto scans. So, I look forward to seeing everybody. But yeah, you can call, and I see clients on Mondays and Fridays.
Yep, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being here. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Get in touch with Ashely down at World of Wellness. Make an appointment. She's there 2 days a week, and free Zyto scans Thursday and Saturday. I believe we may have some appointments open. So if you want a free Zyto scan just to check it out and see what she does, call the Weiner Wellness Center at 412-922-WELL, W-E-L-L, and they will get you into her schedule for that free Zyto scan or for an appointment. Thanks, Ash. It's always good to see you.
Same here. Have a good one. Thank you.
All right. Okay, guys, stay tuned, because our next speaker is coming up, Kim Furman, who's going to be talking about parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system and the fight or flight, and how that can keep us from our healing. Really important. So we'll answer your questions, as we go back. I see there's one on intermittent fasting, and I'll have Ashely address that. And I can answer it real quick here for you as well. I love intermittent fasting because it does stimulate apoptosis of cells that aren't supposed to be there. It also helps, pull fat that is being stored, triglycerides in our fats, and helps reduce the swelling of our fat cells. It's good intermittently. So it's not a lifestyle. All right, guys, have a great